Is it me, or is Halo Infinite in a bit of a weird spot right now?
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
The multiplayer has been out since November the 15th and the campaign came out on December the 8th. It's currently February the 9th as of recording this video, and I finished the campaign multiple times on Legendary with not all the scores on, but we're getting there. Played the multiplayer since launch, but I just can't help but feel like this game lacks in so many areas, but yet has the potential to be probably one of the best shooters that are out right now. The way that this game works is that it follows the trend of modern gaming, adopting a live service model that gives 343 the excuse that content is coming later down the line, but again, this goes for literally every other game that's out right now. So they add the very bare minimum of content to the game at base launch, which will make them as much money as possible, and then work on everything else in the background and implement it sometime down the line when the community are begging for something new. That's the world of gaming that we live in, ladies and gentlemen. I can almost guarantee that a year from now, this game will look completely different, probably having a full progression system, unlockable armor through progressing in game, and a reason to play the multiplayer. Forge will be there, co-op campaign will be there, firefight will be there, and multiple other multiplayer modes to choose from, and even the campaign. Maybe we'll have our first look or even our first drop of DLC by then, and content to spice things up a little bit. We'll also then have 2 new books in the Halo universe, the first detailing the journey of some of the Spartans that were on the UNSC Infinity during Halo Infinite, and the other with Arbiter and Vale from Fireteam Osiris. But for me, Infinite just needs content, and it needs it fast, and in this video we're going to discuss all the reasons behind this and just have a discussion around what you guys think about it and what content it needs and how it needs it. This video is a little more laid back today, but if you do go on to enjoy the video or agree with any of the points that I do leave in making this video, then do consider leaving a like and subscribing down below for more content. It'd be very much appreciated, but let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to break this video up into 2 sections. I'm going to go into thoughts and reasons around each mode, so campaign and multiplayer. So make sure you guys do go down below and check the timestamps to skip to whichever part of the video that you'd like to. With the awful development that Halo Infinite went through, it's an absolute miracle that we got a functional and polished campaign at all. Again, this is the reason why we have so many audio logs and the reasons why audio logs tell us so many parts of the story which we haven't been able to play or experience via a cutscene. They needed to somehow cram this in, and an audio log was the best fit for that. But as I've done in many of my concept art videos, the overall vision for Halo Infinite was so much different and it looked absolutely amazing, and if that was the game that we would have got, this would have been by far one of the best games in the last 10 years. And by the way, for those that are interested, I'll leave a link down below to the playlist where you guys can go check out all of my concept art videos as well. And there's a big playlist full of them all in there, so make sure you go do check that out. To name a couple of quick examples, the Zeta Halo map was apparently going to be 3 times the size as to the one we're able to play now within Halo Infinite's campaign, with different biomes, side quests, random banished patrols with captured marines that you could shoot and risk saving or them killing them, and it really means that your actions do matter. Hostile and non-hostile wildlife, and even abandoned structures across the ring that would give the players an area of mystery and maybe even bring back the horror factor to Halo, like we had in Halo Combat Evolved when the Flood was there, or even the Jaeger and Domino mission when you enter the vessel and you can look around with your flashlight and everything's a bit eerie and dark. Stuff like this was meant to be a big part in Halo Infinite, but again, the development issues did not help that. Now, we do know that Halo Infinite's campaign will be getting DLC in some way or other, but we don't know how, and this is when my first concern starts. Now, with the story in a campaign, there's only so much replay value once you've spent all of your time playing through it and trying to 100% it. With Halo Infinite and it being an open world game, it has way more replay value in my opinion than previous games in the series. Now, I'm not talking from a story perspective because I think the first 3 Halo games are the best in the series for storytelling in general, but it's the way that you can play the Infinite campaign which is why it gets number 1 on my replay value list. You can't quite explore the first 7 Halo games like you can in Infinite. In Infinite, there are no loading screens to go from one map to the other, there's no main menus to have to skip or choose your missions, and for me it's a completely open book as to where you want to go, what you want to do, and how you want to do it. With this in mind, DLC needs to tailor to this. An open world, new collectibles, new missions and side quests, but how will that be presented to us? And that is my main question, or concern I should say. How long are we going to have to wait for the first campaign DLC drop? Will it be a year between each one? Or could we get smaller drops throughout the year with plenty to do and plenty to keep us going and flowing through that year. The Destiny series is an always online story-driven experience where you can travel between different parts of the ecosystem and complete missions and quests to fulfill the overall story and the lore. Halo isn't really like that, to be honest, and yes, you can travel to different locations and fight on different parts of the ring, but Halo really is a solo game which you can play multiplayer on co-op, campaign, multiplayer, split screen, etc. But then you have a separate multiplayer mode to be able to go against other players. With Destiny, it's all kind of in one. You can do more story-driven gameplay or playthrough in Destiny and do this in expansions, but then there's also a fully fledged arena multiplayer mode. So maybe Halo Infinite could follow something very similar. I do think Halo Infinite's DLC will be very different to the way the Destiny rolled theirs out, but in some ways it could share similarities in how we receive the content. The way that the DLC works in Destiny is that there's one main topic for that DLC for the year. So for example, in Halo's terms, that could be Halo Endless. And then within that year, you'd then have 2 or 3 expansions that would delve into what this particular topic would be. So within Halo Infinite terms, you'd have a Halo Endless, and then within that one particular year, you would then have 3 expansions, smaller expansions, bearing in mind with a bit of a smaller story, so it could be 1, 2, 3 hours long, and then that would dive into the topic of Halo Endless, so it could be a 3-part story for that one particular DLC year, if that does make sense. So maybe that's how DLC will work in Halo Infinite, but for me, again, with the multitude of development issues, I bet there's a lot of leftover assets that they did cut from the game or just didn't include at all because of the development issues, which is why I think they may go for this approach, because there must be a lot of leftover assets and different things that were cut from the game which they can use in DLC, and not to mention if they haven't finished one of their DLC packs yet, I'd be very, very concerned. But you do also have to remember that with Halo, there's a lot of moving parts in the overall universe. New books, new novels, additional TV shows and series, short films, audio clips. There are a lot of places that you can get your dose of Halo lore and content from, which is why maybe there may not be regular updates and we may only get sort of one campaign per year, or maybe even like a 5-6 hour campaign once a year. I do think Infinite will string out their DLC releases and make them go as long as possible between each one, giving as much time to the developers as they possibly can until the community are almost demanding for new content. Not to mention, if they made DLC paid, that would just be outrageous. For me, DLC has got to be free for the campaign, and especially for those that have paid $60 for the base campaign. If we didn't get DLC for free on the back of that, I don't know, man, that's a bit fishy for me. Personally, for me, one of my biggest concerns going into the DLC year or the future of Halo Infinite is around the campaign being potentially left in the shadow of multiplayer. Not that multiplayer is anything fancy in its current state, but I want the campaign to have full focus from 343, as the Halo universe is unlike any other universe of any other game. The community want to know more and more about what happens next. There's always questions and theories as to what things mean or how they came to be. The series is so unique because it has so many years of history backing it, and the lore is quite literally its own universe. For me, regular shorter stories would be absolutely perfect, expanding the ring as we progress through the expansions, and even maybe eventually expanding out to different locations in the universe. Example, in a year's time, Zeta Halo could be fully rebuilt. It could then include things along the lines that were cut from the game, such as different biomes, wildlife, abandoned structures and buildings, but then there could also be a menu in the game where you can fast travel between different locations of the universe. For example, there could be a map based on Earth or New Mombasa when it's being rebuilt, like in the multiplayer map. There could even be one from Bastion in Halo 5, we don't know too much about it, and 343 Guilty Spark is actually the monitor of Bastion, so that would tie in really nicely with the story. Or even on Reach, which is really, really cool, and I would love to go back to Reach. And this is very similar to Destiny, how you have the map and the main menu where you can go to whichever part or planet that you want to in that ecosystem. And I just think it opens it up a little bit more, and it allows you to travel between different locations, which then again opens up the ability to be able to do different side quests, travel between the different ones and stuff like that. I think that would be really, really cool. Not necessarily straying away from the typical Halo campaign, but making it more accessible and replayable for those that are trying to just solely focus on campaign stuff. I just want the story to be ever evolving, and not to have to wait another 6 years for a new entry like we did from Halo 5 to Infinite. I mean, come on, even throwing a few spin-offs at us a few years down the line, that is completely fine with me. Bringing back a few well-known characters and let us delve further into the universe of Halo from their perspective. So even if that is Alpha 9, Blue Team, it could be Red Team, it could be Green Team for all we know. It could be anyone in the universe of Halo. Just something that's interesting, engaging, and makes us want to like these new characters. I'm perfectly okay with that. I just don't want DLC to be butchered, for 343 to become stagnant when releasing new content, and I want this DLC content to be engaging and to also make us feel fulfilled, but also will leave us wanting more for the next DLC drop. But I do think the model of playing through the campaigns, which are say 2 to 3 hours long, we have 3 of those a year, which for me would be absolutely perfect, on the basis that all development goes well. So we could have 2 or we could have 3, depending on what the plan would be. It gives us only a few months between updates and content, keeps the story flowing at a good pace, and gives the community a proper taste at what live service should be. For me, that would be how you do it. Multiplayer. Where do I start with this one? I'm not going to bore and regurgitate all of the stuff that we already know about multiplayer, because it's the only thing that people are talking about within Infinite right now. A game with so much promise and potential with very little execution, especially in the multiplayer side. Halo Infinite's multiplayer was released a whole 1 month early. Upon release, for me anyway, it was extremely polished and very, very well done. I thought that it felt great. I had very little to no issues at all, and I loved the gameplay. I must have put days straight into it when it first came out, grinding and just having fun playing Halo again. But then I got bored, and to be honest, I haven't played it like that since. That's my biggest problem with Infinite in general, and it's not because it's a bad game at all. I absolutely love Halo Infinite from top to bottom. It feels amazing, and it looks amazing, and most importantly, it plays amazing. But the lack of content, key content can I add, is not something that can just be brushed off, and it's borderline criminal. Dating back to the Halo 2 days, it had a fully fledged ranking system at launch. Halo 2 didn't launch with the Xbox Live back in the day when it was first introduced at all either, or online multiplayer. It was released a whole year after the game had actually released. But that was only because Xbox Live released a year later after Halo 2 release, so that's the reason why it was a year later. But with that release, it had the fundamentals to grab the player and want to keep the player grinding and playing their game. Halo Infinite has the fundamentals, and the base game, to be honest, is one of the best shooters on the market at the moment, not to mention it's completely free to play, which is crazy. I do really believe that. But its lack of key features which should grab the player by the balls and keep them engaged is completely gone. Halo Reach is my favourite example to use in these types of videos, and days of my life are completely gone because I wanted to constantly be playing Halo Reach, trying to grind to that next rank and be higher than my friends, get that one piece of armor or armor ability that they didn't have, trying to make my Spartan or Elite in that game look the best it can and the best in my friendship group at the time, having a constant variation in the mode that we played, having constant variation in the different modes that we would play, because all of the daily and weekly challenges being tied to the campaign, firefight and multiplayer, so it really did give you that sense of variety when playing. In Infinite, we just don't have any of this. We have a solid base gameplay with no progression system other than that lackluster battle pass, which, by the way, if you wanted to unlock the armor for free without spending any money, it's going to cost you up to level 81. For me, I think I'm about level 25 on the battle pass from playing. I could not imagine having this awful challenge system trying to get to level 81 just for a helmet. It just doesn't make any sense and doesn't make me want to play this game. There's no armor system, which is worthwhile even trying to use because nothing can be unlocked whilst playing the base game. A lack of party games modes like Infected, Griffball. Where are all of these other modes gone? These were all that I used to play back in the Halo Reach days with my friends. Finding new spots to fend off the zombies, being pissed off when I was the zombie, trying to kill my friends first when I was the zombie. There's just none of this in Infinite. The multiplayer events in Infinite are very underwhelming because there's no overall progression in the game. For example, the Fractured Tenrai event. I don't actually care about the Tenrai armor because I could just go to the store and buy the exact same piece of armor in the store right now. So, in my opinion, what is the point? Overall, the standard of multiplayer in Infinite in terms of gameplay is extremely high and it's pretty at the highest level. It's very polished, it feels very, very good, and I really enjoy it in the base game. But the content and features that this game lacks is so apparent, and it's causing the player retention to significantly decrease as time goes on. And 343, if you are watching this video, if you ever get this far, which I highly doubt, but if so, please just communicate as much as you can. that's all we want. Guys, what do you think? Halo Infinite is a solid game of the year for me, to be honest, but to take it to that very next level, they need to go balls to the wall with content and on all of the new modes as well, and make Forge and Firefight a really good set of modes. But guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. Drop a like if you have and let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Thanks for watching everyone, I really appreciate it. Speak soon and take care.